It wasn't but just last February when I put out my review of the little Mac Mini M1 base model. And even though that little Mac Mini M1 definitely outperformed our custom-built PC, it still had issues when playing back the timeline once the color grade and FX was applied, which resulted in having to drop into proxy mode at half resolution or sometimes even quarter res, and to take it a step further, sometimes even having to change my entire timeline to 720p just so we could play back the edit once the color grade was on. So now here we are, a little over a year later, and I have swapped out that Mac Mini M1 for the MacBook Pro 16-inch M1 Max chip with 32 gigs of RAM. So what makes this M1 Max a little bit more advanced is it has a 10-core CPU, which makes it about 70% faster than the original M1 chip and twice as fast as the M1 Pro. So even though I am going to be taking you guys into the computer today and see how this M1 Max handles 6K R3D RAW as well as 4K 12-bit Cinema DNG RAW, just before we get into that, to give you a really quick idea of just how fast the M1 Max really is, if you happen to catch last week's video of BB Bastidas painting that big mural over in NoHo, that video had all different frame rates from 24 all the way up to 120 frames per second. So because of all those various frame rates, when I did the export, I bumped the quality up to 240,000 kilobits per second, which is about 6 times the normal default Resolve export setting. And that timeline was a little over 3 minutes long. The final file size ended up being 3 gigabytes. The M1 Max exported it in only 22 seconds. So even though that project was only a 1080p project, the reality is the M1 Max was spitting out a gigabyte every 7 seconds. So the whole point of today's video is to see if this M1 Max is just as fast with RAW footage as it is with that all-i.mov footage from the BB Bastida video. And our guinea pig footage for today will be from the intro sequence of this video that you just saw. So I shot all those clips twice on 2 different cameras, once with the Red Komodo and then again with the little Sigma FP, which by the way I'm filming this talking head with right now. But real quick, I briefly want to talk about the setup I have going on right here, because I am utilizing 3 monitors for color grading and editing in Resolve. And as you'll see from the heinous GoPro footage back there, so what you'll see here is I am using my OG HP Dream Colors as both my primary and secondary monitors. And then I'm utilizing the MacBook's Liquid Retina XDR display for my clean video feed. Now, how I'm connecting 2 external monitors to the MacBook Pro is with the same little handy tool that I used in my Mac Mini M1 setup, which is this USB-C Lightning hub right here that does have a 4K HDMI out. So what's cool is the MacBook Pro has 1 HDMI port and 3 USB-C ports. And what I love is that they brought back the SD card slot. I absolutely love that. But the USB-C Lightning hub is the trick to having 2 external monitors. So I'll leave a link to that Lightning hub down in the description below, because this monitor setup, having triple monitors, is so awesome for color grading and editing. Why I made the MacBook Pro the Display 3, which is the clean video feed, is because that is the best place to monitor the color grade utilizing the Liquid Retina display, because most people in the world watching videos are either watching them on iPhones or their Macs. So using the Liquid Retina display of the MacBook is a pretty solid guarantee that the color should be consistent across the board with most audiences, based upon the screens that I know they're going to be watching this stuff on. Some other cool features that I've already been loving about this new MacBook is the Touch ID and, surprisingly, the speaker quality. my wife and I were really amazed at how good these speakers sound. So I'm going to attempt to give you a little shot of that now. I can't guarantee how good the sound quality will be, you know, coming through the Sennheiser, through the sound devices, and then, I don't know, but it should be pretty good. I mean, this mic is pretty decent. Okay, so I'm gonna have to jump down into a single display so I can go into screen record. So this should be interesting too. So now, you know, I'm gonna be screen recording while going through this color grade on the 6K R3D RAW and the 4K 12-bit Cinema DNG. So we're really kind of pushing it to its max now, you know. And I didn't get the 64 gigs of RAM, I went with 32. And I was a little hesitant about that, you know, but, you know, the price is already getting up there pretty high. I did go with the 1 terabyte SSD, so, you know, I was kind of right on the brink of, oh boy, this is a lot. You'll notice that I do have the speed editor here. You'll see it on the GoPro footage there. I've had the Resolve speed editor for quite a while now. I mean, I don't really talk about it much, actually at all. I've never mentioned it at all on the YouTube, not once, I don't think. Now, of course, my Patreon folks, they know everything all the time going on. You'll notice that I did play, you know, I didn't really care about keeping the colors consistent in that opening sequence. As you can clearly tell, it's, you know, the colors are kind of all over the place. That's kind of my thing. So as you'll notice, I mean, all of this, the grade's already applied. So I didn't really want to make this a color grading video. I just wanted to really make this about the M1 Max, okay? So you'll notice that all the nodes are there. I mean, this one has a lot of nodes, right? There's like 3 different windows. Every single one of these clips has noise reduction. They all have a color space transform because it's all raw. So you'll see here, this is R3D RAW. Okay, you'll see how I go from red, wide gamut RGB, and then the gamma curve is log 3G10, and then I just convert everything to Rec 709. That's just what I do. And then from there is a way I go. So there's in this particular clip, there's 3 different windows, but they all have noise reduction applied. A good majority of them have windows, and then, you know, they all have curves and just everything. So yeah, I mean, I can click it off, you'll see where it was, and then you'll see where we went. Now I'm clicked onto the 6K R3D RAW, and you can see over here in the File Metadata tab that yes, it is R3D and it is 6K resolution. I am currently only on a 1080p timeline. Playback, though, we are not in proxy mode at all. So the reason why we're going to do it in 1080p first is because this whole grade is applied, and there are some effects in here. For instance, the whole I don't really mess with Fusion FX too much, but every now and then some of my transitions are Fusion FX. Certainly in the BB Bastidas video, I used some crazy Fusion FX for some of that super high 8 look. And there was a lot of film grain in a lot of those shots. But like, for instance, here's the Fusion FX, you know, stuff like that. Now, that used to not be a thing that I could do at all on the Mac Mini M1, okay? As soon as like a Fusion transition FX was applied and the color grade was applied, certainly not with, I mean, you can see here, we don't even have any proxies turned on. No, that I can tell you right now from experience, I was never able to do that. You know, really honestly, even before a grade was applied, the M1 Mac Mini M1, the original M1, it really struggled with Fusion FX transition. So I don't know if that's just a Resolve thing or what, but here on the M1 Max, that's no longer an issue, right? I mean, look at that. And this is full grade. No proxies are on. This is the full 6K HQ. This is the highest quality of R3D 6K RAW, and it's just seamless over and over. No problem, no hiccups at all, as you can see there. Now, you say, big deal. Well, let's jump it to a 4K timeline and see if that makes a difference. So now here we are. Now we're in a 4K timeline. Let's see if she struggles now. See there? She's struggling a little bit. She is struggling to get through that effect. See there, oh, but once you scrub through it a few times, then she has time to cache, right? Because I do have the FX cache turned on. Yeah, Fusion Memory Cache Auto. So I do have that on auto. So once you scrub through it a few times, but again, it didn't matter in my experience on the Mac Mini M1, the original M1, it wasn't able to do this at all. And now, especially, you see it struggling though? It does struggle with those Fusion FX. That's only where it struggles though. But now you'll watch it's playing back fine. Again, we've changed it now to a 4K resolution and it's just spitting through all this grade, no problem. There it kind of froze a little bit. And there it went back. So when you go back and scrub, it does okay. See it freezing up a little bit? Now, this could be an issue with the screen record because we're screen recording while I'm doing this. 32 gigs of RAM may not quite been enough to handle both the screen record and playing back this high quality 6K R3D RAW footage, right? That could be a thing, you know, because RAM is used when you're using multiple applications, right? Wait till I show you, but now she's going good. Again, I do have the Fusion Cache on. She pumped good on that one. She pumped all the way through on that one. Look at that. Let's jump to the 4K 12-bit Cinema DNG RAW, okay? So I'm gonna show you in the metadata here. 4K resolution, it is DNG, you see that. These file sizes are much bigger than the 6K R3D RAW HQ. Let me show you an example of this. So I'll go over here and I'll show you. Now the difference is the Komodo footage is 16-bit. Okay, so this just gives you an idea of how crazy the bit rate is on 4K 12-bit Cinema DNG versus 6K HQ R3D RAW, okay? That opening clip, it's the same on both cameras. With the Sigma FP, the 12-bit Cinema DNG 4K RAW, it's almost 9 gigabytes for one clip. That same clip in 6K R3D RAW, 16-bit, mind you, is only 2 gigs. So look at that. The FP is 4 times the file size, but it's also 4 times the bit rate, right? And this is what we talked about, you know, in my review of the Sigma FP. If you saw that, you already know that not only does the bitrate smoke the Komodo, but it also smokes the Red Monstro, which is like a $59,000 camera or something like that, okay? Let's just see how it plays back. So again, the grade, I can show you the grade. It's the same stuff. They all have noise reduction, they all have windows. I mean, look, I mean, there's a lot of nodes here, there's curves, there's a lot of stuff, right? It's like, you know, this isn't a grading tutorial, but there's a lot of stuff in there, okay? Now look at this. Now again, let me check the timeline. We're still on a 4K timeline, okay? Well, Ultra HD. And our proxy mode is off, okay? So here we go. And there are transitions in here, and I did add the Fusion FX. So she's going back, no problem here. Look at that. Smoked through that Fusion FX while screen recording. So now look at that. How crazy is that, man? But I mean, just look at the way this thing scrubs, man. I mean, this is butter. This plays back better than the 6K R3D RAW. And these file sizes are way bigger. But again, it could be that bit depth, right? This is only 12-bit 4K Cinema DNG versus 16-bit 6K R3D HQ RAW. So that is a little bit of a thing. But now if we go back to the 1080 timeline, and this is completely okay. I mean, I used to have to do 720 timeline on the Mac Mini, and then when I go to export, just change to 1080. So let's look at this. This is the 6K R3D RAW right here. And check it out, man. Now we've dropped down to a normal 1080p timeline, and it doesn't have any struggles with the screen record still going on. So, yeah, and she's going the whole way there. The whole way. So yeah, you may have to, you know, depending on the amount of how heavy your grade is, how many, you know, especially some of you guys are really big into using Fusion. I don't really mess with it. All I do is a few FX here and there, some of the cool like Fusion transitions. I mean, you guys see my videos. I don't call myself an editor. I never try to get editing jobs. The jobs that I shoot, I don't even want anything to do with them. I don't want to edit them because I know I'm real with myself. I'm smart to myself. I'm not an editor, you know. Even though I do these YouTube videos every week, it's like, you know, you guys see them. There's nothing spectacular about them, you know. But that's because this YouTube channel is not to impress you. This YouTube channel is to just help spread education, you know, or information. Really, I don't know how big of an educator I am, but I'm more about spreading information, right? You may have to stay on a 1080 timeline just for the edit. Now, here's the bummer about doing that, and this is something I realized with the Mac Mini M1. When changing the resolution of your timeline, it does mess up any text you use. So you're gonna have to wait until literally, like, maybe, I'm sure a lot of you guys well-versed in this already know this, but because of this little trick, you're gonna have to wait till the very end and make sure that text, any font, is the very last thing you add before you export. Because if you add any text to a resolution of timeline that is not gonna be your final export resolution, the text is gonna change significantly. Okay, so let me show you an example of this, just as a quick example here, okay? I'm gonna come over here and I'm gonna drop some text on this real quick, right? Here's my text, and we'll just say, yay, Max, M1 Max, right? Yay. Okay, we're gonna make it black. All right, there she's black. Yeah, I wrote yeah. Okay, so this is what I mean. So right now, we are on 1080. So let's jack up the size a little bit, right? Let's track it out a little bit. Let's squeeze it a little bit. Let's move it over here. All right, so now watch. If we lay our font down and then we go, oh yeah, I forgot, I want to export this in Ultra HD. See how it changed the font? It changed your text, right? So you would have to go back and tweak all your text, right? You have to readjust it, you have to redo the tracking, you have to redo it. So your best bet is to save that for the very last thing you do after you, you know, just save your text for last. After you change your timeline resolution back to what your actual export resolution is going to be, then go back, add all your text, then do your export, right? So yeah, there are a little bit of hiccups there, but in 1080, that's not a problem at all. Which, you know, for traveling and anything like that, it's great, right? It's awesome. And, you know, I just saw a video of the big color grading guy that does that when his clients, what's his name, Wakazi or something his name is? He was saying that he even does that when he has clients come in. He'll drop his resolution to 1080 just so, you know, it's seamless, flawless playback when he has clients, so he doesn't have to worry about anything. So even big guys like professional color gradists are doing that trick too. So there you have it. I mean, but this is, I mean, with the screen record, even this 12-bit. Now I will say that before I was rolling, even with a 4K timeline, you know, it wasn't until I started doing the screen record that the Cinema DNG even messed up. Before we were doing the screen record, this was flawless. This was butter. So I do want to say that the screen record is influencing it a little bit. It certainly is. When I saw it hiccuping with the Cinema DNG files. Okay, but now we want to see export speeds, right? So let's see. I left all these super spaced out. This is only a minute. Let's see, how long do you think a normal video would be? Like 5 minutes? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy and paste all this footage until we have like a 5-minute clip. Okay, so here we have a clip that is 5.5 minutes, full grade. Let's go back to, let's do a Ultra HD file, okay? And we have full grade applied here, okay? Our final video will be 5 minutes and 35 seconds. Now I'm going to do some settings in here the same way I do if I was going to export this to YouTube. First thing I do is I change this to H.265, and then I'm gonna come down here and I'm going to do, yes, I'm gonna restrict this to 80,000 kilobits per second. So that means it's going to maintain 80,000 kilobits per second for the quality, which is better than, you know, the automatic setting, okay? So that's good. And then I'm going to come down here and tap advanced settings. And what I always do is I change the color space tag to Rec 709. This is a pro tip here, by the way. And gamma tag, we're going to change that to Rec 709A. Okay, we're going to add this to the render queue. Now we're going to see how long it takes to render the 4K 12-bit Cinema DNG files with a grade, as well as the 16-bit 6K R3D RAW HQ files. It's a 5.5 minute clip. Here we go, render all now. And here we go, away we go. Oh, by the way, this is my first YouTube video with my new Sennheiser MKH. I don't even know the name of it. But let me know if the quality of the audio has changed. I mean, I noticed it immediately just, testing it before we rolled here with the headphones in. Because if you guys use sound device mixers like I do, I have the Sound Devices MixPre 3. I've done a whole video on it with a professional audio mixer. If you haven't seen that, I encourage you to check it out. There is a rumor that if you aren't using XLR mics with your sound devices pre-mixers, you are not taking advantage of those Cashmere preamps nor the limiters. Now that is true with the limiters, is because anytime I used a microphone with a 3.5 millimeter jack with these sound devices, the limiters never worked. And I heard that's because both the limiters and the Cashmere preamps, which is the whole reason why you get a Sound Devices MixPre, I imagine, is they only work through the XLR ports. So you'll have to let me know in the comments below if but only people that watch the entire video to see these Easter eggs would even know about the new microphone. But I'm sure some of you could just maybe hopefully notice as soon as you hear the difference. Anyways, what were we talking about?